Good morning. It's great to have you with us this morning for this worship on March the 21st, 2021. It is hard to believe that we are a year from going into pandemic mode and doing worship on the internet. But we are looking forward to gathering back together in person here pretty soon on Easter Sunday, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But we're glad that you can be here with us today as we are gathered from all over the place through the gift that is live streaming. So this morning I wanted to open our time with a theme with a scripture that fits with our theme today. It's from Titus, which we don't use very often, but this is from Titus 3, verses 4 and 7. It says, "But when God, our Savior's kindness and love appeared, he saved us because of his mercy, not because of righteous things that we had done. He did it through the washing of new birth and the renewing by the Holy Spirit, which God poured out upon us generously through Jesus Christ our Savior. So, since we have been made righteous by his grace, we can inherit the hope for eternal life." And friends, that is good news for us. So we hope that you enjoy the service today, that you are blessed, that you are drawing closer to God's love in this time. So now we turn to our prelude this morning by Ann Steele. Thanks, Ann, again for that beautiful prelude this morning. And it's time for us to be able to share a few God sightings. We've got some good ones this morning. Those of you that have been praying with us for Christina Taylor, and she's just been having a rough time of it. We got to see her this morning at this morning's Sunday school and social hour on Zoom, and so it was just a beautiful thing. I know that was a huge God sighting for all of us, and I imagine it probably was for her too. So please continue to keep Christina in your prayers as she continues to heal and grow stronger. And the other God sighting is all the people. We're doing this Easter pageant video, and we had over 23 people involved in being a part of this video. Probably about 25 or 26 by the time you get the helpers and all that, and card holders. And Patty Graham has done a phenomenal job with this. But just seeing all the people that were involved in that has been just a huge God sighting. So stay tuned. That video should be released here in the next week or so. And so that leads us into our time of prayer requests. Now, we have been praying for Sonny and Sue Jones, who have both been ill. Sue was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and unfortunately she has passed away, even though Sonny's still in rehab. So please keep them and keep Sonny and their whole family in your prayers. And then also continue to pray for Michelle Stiles, who has good days and bad days, but that she gets a diagnosis and some treatment for her lupus. And then Many of you have, or at least our local folks, may have heard about the head-on accident that happened not too far from here, just in between here and Silva, and involved a next-door neighbor to Sandy Clore, who is Jose Martinez, and then one of Patty's students was a driver of another vehicle, Jesus, and one of them had a heart attack and just died basically driving their car down the road and crossed the median and had a head-on collision with the other car, and so both of them were killed in that accident. And so we pray for their surviving families and the people that love them. Both were held in high regard by Sandy, Patty, and those that knew them. So please hold them in your prayers. Let's turn our hearts to God in prayer now. Gracious God, we are grateful for this Sunday, this day of rest, this day of restoration, this day when we turn our hearts to you. Renew us, O God, renew our hearts so that they might be strengthened. Renew our lives so that they might speak of your grace and your love. Help us to keep our eyes open to you at work in the world, through others in the ways that they reflect your love, through your creation that demonstrates your beauty, and especially this time of the year, it just blows up all around us. And for that, we are grateful. We lift up these prayer requests that we've mentioned this morning, but there are still other things that are on our hearts that we lift up now to you as well. For these, the many things that have been left unsaid, hear our prayers. Hear our prayers, O God, and heal our hearts. Hear our prayers and heal our community. Hear our prayers and heal our country. May the divisiveness that separates us somehow find healing through your grace. May we respond in grace when it seems like we are being attacked. May we reach out to others with your grace and with your love, so that the world might see you and experience you in new and fresh ways. We thank you, O God, for being active in our world, for being active in our lives. And we thank you especially for the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray.
Hallowed be temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.
Did you see what we did there? Thanks, Ralph and Ann. That was a beautiful rendition of the Lord's Prayer, and what a better way to conclude our time of prayer this morning. And so, like I mentioned earlier, we have been in this pandemic life for over a year now. It is hard to believe that it has been a year where we have felt like we needed to be apart, to where now the mantra is to be socially distanced, to wear a mask, and to wash your hands, right? To sanitize everything. But the big three are to be socially distant, to wear a mask, and wash your hands. I find it really interesting. I read a story about a doctor from the mid-18th century, Dr. Himmelweis from Vienna, who had started a new job that took on 2 clinics. And there were several doctors in both of these clinics. And so they were not that far apart, but they were far enough apart to where sometimes people might even choose to go to one or the other. Well, both hospitals hosted mothers that were giving birth. And one of the hospitals had a much higher rate of infant mortality than the other one had. But nobody knew why. Nobody could tell any difference. And so Dr. Himmelweis started digging into it, and he started doing some research. And one of the things that he saw was one of the few differences between the 2 clinics at all was that both were teaching clinics, but the one that had the most infant mortalities, also trained people to look at corpses and determine why people died, whereas the other hospital did not. Now, what he found out was that the doctors would actually go from doing an autopsy to doing a live birth. And what he found was that was causing an infection in the infant, who would oftentimes be infected and get a high fever and often die. Like exponentially higher rate of infant mortality than this other hospital that did not do autopsies at that hospital. So what he proposed at that time, and a lot of people gave him a lot of grief about it. They criticized this idea. They thought it was just a load of hogwash, or so to speak, because he told the doctors that in between doing the autopsy and delivering a baby, it was important that they wash their hands very thoroughly with a sterile solution. And it wasn't long after that sure enough, the infant mortality dropped to the same rate as the other hospital, just by washing their hands. Well, as it turns out, this week, after a year of hand washing, today's atonement theory is cleansing. Jesus makes us clean. So this, the understanding is based on the idea that sin is a stain from which we need God to cleanse us. And so sin is a stain that sinks into our innermost being, affecting the way that we think, talk, and relate to God and each other. So salvation comes through Jesus, who cleanses our sins by taking sin upon himself. Jesus is the fulfillment of the Hebrew understanding of the scapegoat. Why is this helpful? Well, it's rooted in Scripture throughout the Bible and anchored in the life of the Jewish people. So we see it a lot in the Old Testament. And yet it's tied in very deeply to the New Testament as well. Jesus' death reminds us how powerless we are to remove our own sin. Well, that's not without its challenges, though, because sometimes some people are troubled by the the older paradigm of the Hebrew sacrificial system, where it's just there's nothing in our culture that helps us wrap our heads around this, just the way that we live our lives in this culture. So it can be challenging to understand it. So the basic idea, though, is that we need cleansing. We mess up, we become dirty, if you will, and Jesus cleanses us. Oftentimes we don't even know that we need it, right? I remember one story when I was in college, some young 18 to 20, might have been 21 or 22 anyway, young guy, and I had started kayaking like all the time. And so every time I got a chance to go to the river, and so this one week I'd either been in a raft or been in a kayak every day, just about all day long. And sure enough, I came home at the end of the day and was sitting on the couch, and I was probably after dinner, and so we were all sitting in the living room together, and I think I'm sitting on the couch with my mom, and she says, "Son, when was the last time you had a shower?" I says, "Mom, what do you mean? I don't need a shower. I'm in the water all day long." She says, "Yeah, go ahead and take a shower." So sometimes we don't realize that we're dirty. Sometimes we don't recognize that we need a shower. But something in our lives has caused us to be a little bit on the dirty side. And so Jesus offers to clean us up. This is the season of Lent. It's the season when we're reminded of our own dirtiness, so to speak. It begins with Ash Wednesday, that we are just a pile of dust, that God breathes life into us, and that in Jesus, God continues to breathe life into us each and every day, giving us abundant and eternal life. Every year during Lent, we also read Psalm 51. And in Psalm 51, it's one of these psalms that reminds us of our dirtiness. It reminds us of us kind of looking back and going, "Oh my God, what have I done? Heal me, heal this situation." And so today, in another little twist, we've got David reading our scripture reading for us from Psalm 51.
Good morning. Today's reading in Psalms is from chapter 51, verses 1 through 12. Have mercy on me, God, according to your faithful love. Wipe away my wrongdoings according to your great compassion. Wash me completely clean of my guilt. Purify me from my sin. Because I know my wrongdoings, my sin is always right in front of me. I have sinned against you, you alone. I've committed evil in your sight. That's why you are justified when you render your verdict, completely correct when you issue your judgment. Yes, I was born in guilt, in sin, from the moment my mother conceived me. And yes, you want truth in the most hidden places. You teach me wisdom in the most secret space. Purify me with the hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Let me hear joy and celebration again. Let the bones you crushed rejoice once more. Hide your face from my sins. Wipe away all my guilty deeds. Create a clean heart for me, God. Put a new, faithful spirit deep inside me. Please don't throw me out of your presence. Please don't take your Holy Spirit away from me. Return the joy of your salvation to me and sustain me with a willing spirit. Amen.
Thanks, David. That was a great reminder. You know, every year we hear it again and again and again, and we're reminded of how we happen to fall short and that we need to hand it over to God. We need to let Jesus take it. Jesus heals the things that we just can't heal. Even though we respond with acts of love and acts of kindness, we still fall short of God's perfect love, and we need God's intervention. Most of us are aware of the origins of this psalm. It's a psalm of David, a man after God's own heart, somebody who loved God more than anything, more than anybody, his whole life. He wrote many of the psalms and songs and just loved God and ruled his country with this heart devoted completely to God. Well, as it turned out, David messed up big time himself. He got caught up in going down the wrong path. Well, it turns out that, so if you want to dig into this a little bit more, I'm going to give you the quick version of it. But 2 Samuel 11, chapter 11, gives you all the dirty details, right, of what's going on. And so David stays home when he's not really supposed to be at home for whatever reason, so he's kind of chilling out on his rooftop porch, and that's just kind of the way the houses are structured there. Especially in those days, it was a good place just to be. It's like, you know, sitting out on your porch in a rocking chair. So they just were up on their roof. At the same time, his neighbor Bathsheba was bathing herself, and one thing led to another, and so David figured out that he needed to do something because Bathsheba became pregnant. And so David figured he needed to take care of it. Now, Bathsheba, unfortunately, was married to one of David's army generals, right, who were in battle at the time. And so David told his main general to set Uriah, the general who was married to Bathsheba, to set him up so that he would likely be killed in battle. And sure enough, he was. And so after her time of mourning for her husband, David and Bathsheba got together, and they were married later on. So David thought all was cool, right? He thought, I'm good. We're just going to I'm going to take it from here. Until the prophet Nathan came over and said, I know what's up. Here, let me tell you a story. David, let me tell you a story. In fact, it's a story about you're a shepherd, right? You cared for sheep, and so you know you have a heart of a shepherd. And there was this one shepherd who had tons of sheep. He had flocks of sheep, more sheep than he could possibly imagine. And so he looked over at his neighbor, and his neighbor was a shepherd who had just one little lamb, and he loved that lamb more than anything in the world and cared for it, and it just meant the world to him. And the rich neighbor took that lamb and stole it away as his own. Well, David wasn't having any of that, right? He says, I tell you what, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to get that man's lamb back, and this rich guy, he's going to pay, and he's going to pay big. So guess what Nathaniel's next word was? That man is you. Today, we might call that busted. And David realized what he was talking about. And it broke his heart. He knew that it wasn't the right thing to do, but it just, all of a sudden, for some reason, it just hit him, being faced with it. I know that we have things that sometimes we're blind to, that all of a sudden we're faced with, and we go, oh my God, what have I done? How can you heal this? How can you heal me? But God does. God does, even though we're reminded that we are dirty. One of the ways that the Hebrew people dealt with sin was called scapegoating. Well, if you want to, again, dig into the details a little bit more, you can go to Leviticus, specifically chapter 16, verses 6 through 10. And it talks a little bit more about the scapegoat idea. But essentially, they chose two goats. One would be sacrificed in the usual way, and another one, everybody would put their hands on it, and in essence, symbolically, they would put their sins on this goat and then turn it loose into the wilderness, or chased off into the wilderness, never to be seen again. Taking the sins of the people with it when the goat went, right? So that it just got rid of them. And they would do this once a year on the Day of Atonement. And they did this time after time after time. But the idea of taking things that are wrong, taking our problems and putting them on something and sending it away is not just about goats. I think that Rene Girard, a modern theologian, had it right when he talked about scapegoating and how humans scapegoat each other. We see something that we want, or we see a problem that we can't solve. We need somebody to blame. Maybe even we have been the one to be the problem. But if we can find us a scapegoat, if we can say, aha, it's them, then we can unite against the scapegoat. When we create this us versus them, we unite against the scapegoat, and then we push it off into the wilderness. We're covered. The goat's gone. What's the harm in that? But Jesus flips it, right? Jesus flips that model on its head and says, I will be your scapegoat. I will be the one that takes it all on. I will be the one that cleanses you from all these things. And he gave himself up and set himself up to be the scapegoat so that we wouldn't ever have to do that again. And Jesus tells us through his word and through his life, his death and resurrection, that we never have to do that again. You know, our baptism itself is a symbol of and representation of cleansing. Our old dirty selves, our old messed up selves that need to take a shower. We go down in the water, but then when we come up out of the water clean, we are made new in Christ. Well, I find it interesting as we have a little basin that we often, Methodists tend not to, although sometimes we do. We will do several different types of baptism. Oftentimes it might be sprinkling from a basin inside. It might be pouring water over the head, or it might be full immersion, especially in the river. One of my most wonderful memories is doing a baptism of Ken Graham out at the River of Life one Sunday. And that was a beautiful thing, something that I remember to this day. Thinking of you, buddy. But if we think about the basin, we are reminded of Jesus and his use of the basin. And we also think about Pilate's use of the basin. If we remember when Jesus was on trial, Pilate's like, look, guys, I don't think he's guilty. I think y'all are getting worked up over nothing. Settle down. But the people and the religious leaders, they just didn't want to hear it, did they? They kept going, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. And Pilate said, you know what? In a public showing, he had in his basin water, and he washed his hands, saying, I wash my hands of this. When really what he needed to do was to take a stand and do what was right and to save the innocent victim. But instead, he just washed his hands of it and walked away and let Jesus be the scapegoat. Then we look at how Jesus used the basin. Jesus took the basin on the last night of his life before his crucifixion. He's gathered with his disciples for a big celebration meal. All these students, all these friends that have been following him around for 3 years and doing ministry with him and being ministered to and being healed by Jesus and learning and just all the wonderful things that have gone on. And he flips the script again. Jesus takes the basin and he washes the disciples' feet. What? That's a role reversal right there. That's not what the master does. That's what the servant does. But Jesus, with a basin of water, washed the nastiest part of the disciples, took a towel from around his waist, dried them off, told them he loved them, and that was that. Which basin do you want to use? The basin where you wash your hands of your own responsibility, your responsibility of care and grace and love? Or do you wash your hands in the basin of serving others out of God's love, out of God's grace? Which basin will you use? Let us pray. Holy God, may we live each day knowing that we are clean and pure in your sight through the good work of Jesus. We thank you for the grace and the mercy that you have shown us and your cleansing love that renews us every day. Help us to wash our hands so that we might be in service of others. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, if you're wondering about some good ideas about how to wash your hands and being service to other people and in love, and you might want to consider being involved in one of these ways. So we've got a group working on our prayer path and garden this coming Saturday, March 27th. They're meeting out in the garden at 10 o'clock. If you're interested in being a part of that, you can just show up. If you're around here, just show up back behind the Restoration House in the garden at 10 o'clock, and Patty will make sure that you are guided in what needs to happen next. And then right after that, just a few days after that, the Pasadena Cafe celebrates its 1-year anniversary. Woo, doggies. And so I know Patty's got some big things going on with that. And so if you would also like to be a part of the Pasadena Cafe dinner team and help get ready for that, help serve, again, just talk to Patty, and she will guide you in the best way possible. Of course, one of the best ways that you can help out too, if you can't be here in person to help with these ministries, is you can give financially. It's one of the ways that we can help from afar when we just can't be here, because I have seen personally the many ministries that this church does to help our community, to lift each other up, to grow in loving connection. It is a beautiful thing. And so one other way that you can connect is through in-person Easter services on April the 4th. We'll have a sunrise service at 7. We'll also have our regular service, our traditional Easter service, at 11 o'clock. Both will be followed by a meal and some social time. We'll decorate the cross as usual after the 11 o'clock service. We'll have a kids' Easter egg hunt. It's just going to be a great time, and we look forward to celebrating the resurrection of Jesus on this day, a year after we have gone into pandemic living. So I think it's going to be a celebration like we've never seen before. So I hope to see you soon, whether you're serving, whether you're giving, whether you're just participating, or maybe even just participating online. Thank you again for joining us today. We'll see you soon. Go in peace.